And I'm going to call this meeting to order. Yuri, we're calling to order for February 11th. And we will begin, as we always do, with public input on any topic not on the agenda. Anybody? Got anything? Nothing? Okay. We'll go to Chairman's comments, and I actually have a few things that I want to draw people's attention to. The town clerk has asked me to announce that the deadline to register to vote for the primaries, which occur on March 3rd, is tomorrow. That's the deadline. That's also the deadline to change party or to unenroll from a party. You can vote in any party's primary if you are a member of that party or if you're unenrolled, right? Got it. Clerk's office is open tomorrow until 8 p.m. and there's more information on our town website. Absentee ballots for the presidential primary are available right now. The forms and the information are on the town website. And early voting, as you can see from the beginnings over here, will be occurring in this room, February 24th to 28th. And there's also more information on the website. And of course, the March 3rd presidential primary, it will be at the center school. Polls open 7 to 8 a.m. Town census.
7 to 8 p.m.
Oh, yes, what I said.
Never mind.
Okay, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Town census forms are due here by the end of February, and dog licenses are now available. I think it's still at the lower rate, right? $10 each. They can be done online, and check the homepage for more information. As a result, the early voting, I know this will disappoint everyone here, the next Selectmen's meeting, members of the board, please note this, will be on February 25th at Pompo, because this room will be occupied for early voting. And that is it for Chairman's comment.
Can't we coexist with everybody?
Well, I think it'll be a little crowded and it will interfere with Stowe TV's view of us, I assume. So, we have two sets of minutes, is that correct? Yes, we have sets of minutes from our regular meeting of January 28th and from our special meeting on February 1st to interview candidates for the Town Administrator Screening Committee. Courtney, thanks very much for doing that on February 1st, and I think we'll take those up first. I had one comment on those minutes. I thought they were great. The very last line mentions how Ellen was interviewed earlier. It should be January 28th, not 14th. Any other comments on those minutes?
Good catch.
Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move we accept the meeting minutes of February 1st as amended.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the minutes of February 1st as amended. For discussion. Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And so Courtney, I assume it's on your computer. You could make that change and get it to Maureen. She'll do it? Okay,
I have a
terrific.
note here, so I'll just hand
Great.
it over to her.
The minutes of January 28th. Thank you, Maureen. I don't think I had anything, but the real test is whether Mr. Ryan had anything.
I was good.
Oh,
I got two small things.
and Ms. Frecia.
We probably want to note that also present for the interview, moderator David Walrath.
Oh, that's good.
Good call.
Yeah.
And on the anti-fraud policy, we voted to accept that as amended because there were some minor changes.
No, it wouldn't be a man.
What did we, I don't know that I recall that. What did we amend?
I don't know, but it said that the vote, if you read the minutes, our vote was that we accepted it with
Unanimously agreed with its contents and voted to accept it.
huh?
Anti-fraud.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, well, scratch that. That's what I read today earlier was,
Where do you think you read it? Here?
I read the packet on the electronic version that
Okay.
I received, so it's all right.
Okay.
I can let it go.
I can leave because I didn't amend it.
So I think, Maureen, you can forget the anti-fraud comment.
The other thing is, Maureen, is the next agenda item, you want to bold the title for uniformity's sake, but it's a small thing.
Oh, do you know what he means? He means,
Approval Board of Selectmen 2019 Annual Report.
right. Thank you. Thank you. And now, correspondence. I pulled out a couple of things
I'll make a
from,
motion that we accept the minutes
Oh,
of January
sorry.
28th as amended.
Second?
motion made and seconded to accept the minutes of January 28th as amended. Further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Ryan, for keeping me on track. Appreciate that. Couple of things from correspondence that I thought were interesting. They're not agenda items. There's an item in here about the MMA legislative breakfast, and there's one on Friday, February 28th in Littleton. That seems to be the closest one. These are really terrific. I went to the last one. I really thought it was very, very good. Not the breakfast. Breakfast is a little lame, to be perfectly honest, but the subject matter is pretty good.
Thank you for braving it.
Well, it's not that bad, but nothing you can't get at Dunkin' Donuts. The Minuteman Senior Services is doing their March for Meals in March, where people can go and help deliver Meals on Wheels. Don was always very good about doing this, and I'm thinking that maybe one of us should step up in his absence and participate. Please let me know if you're interested. If no one else does it, I think I might sign up to do it. I did it once with Steve, long time ago. It really doesn't take that long, but it's interesting to see just how they organize the whole thing. And in the correspondence, there was this dauntingly thick packet from the Division of Local Services that looks like it is chock full of very interesting information comparing various communities, things like single-family home, taxation values, new growth figures. It looks to me like it's worth at least skimming through. So Maureen, I'm gonna ask if you make me a copy and put it in my slot upstairs, and if anybody else wants a copy, you can let Maureen know. I'm sorry.
If our chair permits, if the chair thinks it's that worthwhile to read, perhaps we could scan it in and then circulate it among the board.
That's an even better idea. So it is the 21st century, so let's scan it in and send it to everybody. They can do with it as they please. Could somebody put this back in the green correspondence folder where that is? Thank you. All right, we have a couple of appointments to the Open Space Committee, and I see we have both our applicants here. Do you want to come forward? Yes, please. Well, I don't see why not.
Tom Ryan.
Hi.
I'm not recording. It's me. It's me.
Yeah, Jim says
Nice to meet you.
My wife's going to be so excited she met somebody from your family.
Oh, boy. Hi, nice to meet you.
So we have two spots, right? This is not a competitive appointment, all right? I filed a disclosure with the town clerk, so I don't see any reason why I can't fully participate in this. So thank you both for stepping forward for these two vacancies on the Open Space Committee. Let's each, one by one, tell us why you're interested in this committee and why you want to serve in this capacity.
Sure.
Natalie?
Well, I moved to Stowe about a year and a half ago, and when we were looking for towns to live in, Stowe was my #1 choice, namely because there is quite a bit of open space. So when I learned that there was an opportunity to be on this committee, I was really excited about that. My particular background, I am a cyclist. I love being in the woods, cycling, hiking, that type of thing. So I also am excited about learning about the different areas that there are in Stowe to do that, and hopefully being a part of keeping Stowe sort of the way that it is, so that my children and children to come kind of have those same opportunities.
Okay.
Sure. I think you all know me. I've lived in Stowe for about 19 years now, hard to believe. And actually the Open Space Committee was the first committee that I joined when I moved here. Sat on the committee for many years. I helped write the 2008 Open Space Plan and then the 2016 Open Space Plan in my current job. I think there's probably not an undeveloped parcel of land in Stowe that I don't know something about. One of the roles of the Open Space Committee is to kind of help prioritize parcels and look at the attributes of parcels for acquisition. So I think I can be helpful with that. And the committee has actually been down a couple of members for quite some time, and they've struggled a little bit to get quorums. I am usually at the meetings anyway. I've been attending and kind of helping them out, so I thought I would apply for the vacancy.
Do you want to tell the board and people at home a little bit about what the Open Space Committee does?
Sure. It was originally created many years ago, really to look at the vacant parcels of land in Stowe and kind of rank them as to how important they were for acquisition for various attributes and for various purposes. And then since then, I think the role of the committee has evolved a little bit. They help with the preparation of the Open Space and Recreation Plan that the town has to update every 7 years now. It used to be 5, but the state now gives us 7. And then the committee really has a big role in driving the implementation of the plan. So, you know, yearly we kind of sit down with the plan, we talk about what progress has been made, what action items really aren't receiving a lot of attention, and kind of how to help the responsible boards and committees move them forward.
Okay.
So those are the main 2 roles.
Natalie,
And they
you-
serve on the CPC. The Open Space Committee has a seat on the Community Preservation Committee.
Natalie, have you had a chance to go to a couple of meetings and see?
Yes, I've been to 3.
Okay, great. Questions from members of the board?
Are they doing a good job?
They're doing a great job.
Anything else?
Uh,
Mr. Burke?
I don't want to overload Ms. Forsythe, but we have an active agricultural committee in town that you might want to look in on. 'Cause I think you would could bring a lot to that as well, but I'm not going to try to overcommit you.
I don't know very much about it, but I'm happy to check it out. Are you on it?
No.
No.
Farmer Brand.
He's trying to find somebody else before they try to grab him.
Like Daniel Webster, gentleman farmer attorney. No, I'm sorry. He
I think
doesn't-
it's an informal gathering of some of the farmers.
Okay.
It does need a little boost right now. I mean, farming's doing great, but as an organized group, they could probably be more effective if they band together. And
What's their goal?
well, see, this is probably, and now we're really getting off topic, but if you ask the farmers, what do you want from the town government, their answer would probably be stay out of our way. But I don't know, I still think, you know, like for chambers of commerce, there's some value to getting together and seeing what your common interests are and your common enemies.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Well, thank you for letting me know about it.
Oh, we got probably lots of opportunities. Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion?
On the recommendation of the Open Space Committee, I move to appoint Natalie Ferjulian Forsythe to the Open Space Committee to complete the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2020. And on the recommendation of the Open Space Committee, I move to appoint Kathleen Sferra to the Open Space Committee to complete the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded, to have further discussion. Motion made and seconded, I did this in the wrong order, to appoint Natalie Ferjulian Forsythe to the Open Space Committee to complete an unexpired term expiring June 30th, 2020, and Kathy Sferra to the Open Space Committee to complete the remainder of an unexpired term expiring June 30th, 2021. Further discussion.
I just want to say thank you very much for stepping forward.
Thank you.
Both
Thank
of
you.
you.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that's unanimous. Natalie, thank you. Kathy, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think that we, Mr. Town Administrator, we're going to skip over the next item, the appointment of the firefighter for some procedural issues, right?
Yes, so at this moment, the chief is filling out the appropriate transparency documents with regard to potential conflict of interest, and he'll be delivering those to selectmen. Thought it would be best to have those in advance rather than try to explain them this evening for the appointment.
The applicant is a relative of an existing firefighter. There's a procedure for that.
Got it.
So we'll go right to our next one. Kevin, you want to join us? And
Melissa.
Melissa, hi.
Whalen.
Kevin's
wife, Melissa. Hi, nice to see you again. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again. See you. I'll switch.
That's very well done, the way you both went different directions.
See that?
at the
Yeah.
same time. That
That's
was
19 years of marriage
That
right
was,
there.
it shows.
We nailed it.
That was an Olympic event. You
Yeah, right.
qualified.
Yay.
So why don't you tell us, I think this is an opportunity to publicize a little bit what you're doing.
Excellent.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about the lighting for autism awareness that you want to do at Buffalo?
Okay, great. Thank you for taking the time,
Sure.
by the way. You want to start? You want me to
Well, I
start?
can, yeah, I'll start. Light It Up Blue, I don't know if you know, is worldwide. It's not just local, everything from Eiffel Tower to
Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls. And it's a monthly, the month of April is known for Autism Awareness Month, so that's what Light It Up Blue is for. It's just to promote awareness, and mostly ours is just so people ask, why is it blue? People will ask, what does this mean? And it's different for every single person.
Right, it's really just to spark
It's really to
conversation.
spark conversation, and also to teach people just to be aware where, you know, we're always teaching our children, our child with special needs to watch out, but it's to other people so they learn from them, so.
Right. Yep, and the 2nd of April is Light Up Awareness Day.
Day,
Right.
yeah.
So we rented out the community center for that night to have an event of whoever wants to come. We have people that have tables, you know, people like an informative kind of thing, people that do ABA services, or what, if you don't know what that is, it's at-home behavioral services. And there's hopefully we're getting a financial planner there
For
that can
special
help
needs,
with
and more
special
people are
needs.
asking to be involved, so the police and fire were there, so.
Yeah.
Mike Solis actually created a, database they have one for the elderly, and you fill it out, and it informs you that you have a child with special needs in this home or in this community, and it says this is what you do when you approach them, and that information gets out there. So it's giving awareness for the nonverbal child or the child that may run when you approach him, so that they know. So
Right.
he presented that last year, and he's gonna bring the paperwork again so people can fill that out, which gives a huge opportunity for anything. We're also not just Stowe. For the kids with special needs, we're in Neshoba, so they go out of town quite often. Our child goes to Bolton, and just until recently, and he was in Lancaster before, so he crosses the town borders. So that's a really good database to show. So he does some presenting. So
And
we
it raises a flag, so if the police or fire do have to come to the home, they know how to approach, you know, no sirens, no lights, you know, whatever sensitivities the child or adults really have, they can try to make adjustments. You know, don't come in, you know, not necessarily guns a-blazing, but don't come in all excited and amped up, because it's just gonna escalate the situation. you know.
So he's there for information, so all those people are coming there to hopefully gather some information. Parents, that's what we're trying to do, is make it an informative event. And we made it a fundraiser last year. Some of the money went to both the Doug Flutie Foundation for our oldest son who ran a race, and then for the Neshoba Best Buddies. So it became a fundraiser as well.
Is it a fundraiser this year?
If that's what we're working on right now with Best Buddies. And
Okay.
so we're presenting it as we'd like them to do that, but we're trying to get the Best Buddies kids to do it, or the
Right.
Neshoba Honor Society, and let them do that, and let them control it.
And we did this last April, I think, right?
The last 2 years. This will be year 3.
Okay.
Yep.
There's a
You seem
picture of
like
it.
you're all prepared.
So we
Okay.
printed a picture. It didn't come out as well as I had hoped, but that's from the street, you know, so it's subtle. It's nothing that's really flashy. There's not a lot of light pollution, if you will. It's very, very subtle against the building. It's all
We'll answer Brian Burke's question. It's solar.
it's solar powered, so there's no cords. So there's no electricity coming from the community center and like that. They're all self-running.
So-
I can't get a good light in here. No, it's okay. I can't get a good light in here, but it's very, very subtle. It's just a light blue light that shines up against the building.
So my wife and I took a course on night photography,
Oh yeah.
and I'm going to make it a personal project. Notice I didn't say personal for me or her. But,
Someone to get a good
probably
photo
personal
for us?
To get you a better picture.
Oh, that'd be phenomenal.
Um,
Yeah, I'd
I'll see
appreciate
what I can
that
do
very
with
much,
that.
because I did not take that course, clearly.
Remind me, but I'll put it in my calendar right after this meeting's over. That's great. Let me ask you this, if I'm a parent sitting at home right now, and I think that this just sounds like a great idea, and I want to get involved, what could I do? Is there a website I can go to?
For Autism Speaks, there's a website who they kind of promote the Light It Up Blue, and that, again, that's a nationwide kind of website. So if they want to donate right to us, we're not doing any of that. We're just doing it for the community awareness right now. And I'll probably create an event. That's what I did last year. I created an event on Facebook, and I just sent it to I invited pretty much everyone I know and anyone that has, and then it just kept growing, and it's open to I made it a public event. So.
And will it be under Autism Awareness or Autism Speaks?
The event, I'll do Light It Up Blue.
Oh, okay.
I'll do it at the town of Stowe. I'll do it
Okay.
as town of Stowe. Yeah,
Okay.
so it'll be
I think
like.
we could hang something at the community center, so if someone wanted to volunteer or to
I had
just
some
to
flyers.
participate,
Yep, we had some flyers.
Yep, we had M&Ms, we had
It's
them
getting
kind of
bigger
spread
each
around.
year, so we're kind of,
Okay, and I'm assuming you don't want to give out your contact information.
I'd be happy to.
Well, or we can just say to people, if you want to get in touch with the two of you, they can email the selectman's office.
Yeah.
okay.
And we can forward it to you.
That'd
And
be
we are,
excellent.
what are we, selectmen? What are we? Selectmen at
Stowe-ma.gov.
Okay, excellent. And I can leave my contact information with Maureen or something. That's
Great.
fine.
Questions from members of the board?
Sounds like a fair amount of work and also a wonderful, addition and contribution.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. Kate Hogan was there and gave us
Yeah,
a
she was a verbal for this year, but
yep,
we haven't got, so hopefully
a
that's.
citation of something one year.
Yeah.
And is that for the second?
April 2nd, so it'll be
Okay.
April 2nd. Yeah.
I've been the last couple of years, I thought it was more than 2 years, maybe.
I think it might be. This
I
might
think
be
it
the
was
fourth.
3. I think, yeah.
Really?
because-
That's the
Because
fourth
I
year?
remember when you first inaugurated this, I was chair. That's back to the unspeakable,
So I think.
awful days of.
We try not to recall those.
So I think the
That's
first
right.
time we didn't have lights outside, I think that's what
Yeah.
happened. So this
Perhaps
is
we
only
did
the
do that.
third time for the lights outside,
Yeah.
fourth time of having the event.
It was a dark time in general.
Yeah, right,
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Well,
For
he was
everybody
chair,
involved,
so-
for everybody involved. Yeah,
Good one.
yeah.
But it's a
Um,
lot of fun when I have gone, I don't know, be able to make it this year for some reasons, but it's a lot of fun, it's just like a party inside, and
Yeah.
kids are.
We had some of the kids, Gwen, Brian's daughter, even
We
made
had some-
cupcakes, and that was part of the.
Please, for
sales.
cupcakes. It's
Right.
very good.
So we had, a bunch of the kids made it, some of the moms, local moms just decided, I had a mom that did, I think she donated 100 very well-made cupcakes and, so the kids had a blast, and it's not a very long event, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours, it's very quick.
Also, maybe that's the night I should try to get a picture. I'll do this.
Well, that's what we're asking for, to see how long, so the event is a month-long event, Autism Awareness is April, we think we were 2 weeks to put the lights up, but technically it's the entire month, so that was the only difference, is we were asking if we could keep that up for the entire month this year. We put them up, we take them down, it's solar, like we said, so.
I don't see any reason why not. It's a great cause and raises awareness for something.
Happen to have the building commissioner sitting here.
I can
We're good
work-
with this?
I can work with them.
Yeah.
I absolutely do not have any objection to that at all. I think it's
Yeah.
a great cause, and we've done it like, we've talked about it 3 or 4 years, so.
I
That's
think
fine with
actually,
me.
I think actually when we started talking about it, I think you actually asked for a month.
And we
But
got
what we did is we just said, let's
Yeah.
do 2 weeks and see how it goes and,
Right.
just to see, and I don't see any reason why not.
No.
And it's really nice getting a picture once in a while, someone will send, they might have driven through town and said, I saw your building, that you
Yeah.
lighted up, and
Yeah,
they,
maybe
or they
someone
post.
doesn't pass it every night, right?
Or
Yeah,
someone
it's
else will
nice.
say, did you see this? And then I'm tagged on it from someone out of town, so it's really nice.
Whenever I saw blue lights like that, I always thought it was the police station, so I stayed away.
Right.
Maybe a few others.
Let me ask you a practical question. Our motion says, if the draft motion is to allow Kevin Whalen to do, should it be something else? Is there an organization? Or is it okay to make a deal?
Except you can make it me.
Both
Yeah.
of us.
Oh, Kevin and
Both.
Melissa.
Kevin and Melissa,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kevin Whalen and Associates, Kevin and Melissa.
Melissa.
Kevin and
Melissa's
Melissa
fine.
Whalen. Melissa's the boss, I'm just the
Okay.
VP.
You just carry the lights around.
Right.
He's a laborer.
I'm the laborer, right.
And I don't think there are any particular guidelines we need them to follow, other than it'll be for the entire month of April.
Well, I would expect that if the building commissioner had any issues, you know, these guys have worked with them before, that they would address it.
Not a
and-
problem.
and move
Not
on.
a problem at all.
We
Same
typically
on.
put them in on April 1st and let them charge for a good 24 hours, and then we don't turn them on until April 2nd.
Yeah, so start the second to the month.
So I will entertain a motion to allow Kevin and Melissa Whalen to install temporary blue lighting for the Pompasitica Community Center for Autism Awareness Month for the entire month of April, observing and following directions as given by the building commissioner.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to allow Kevin and Melissa Whalen to install temporary blue lights at Pompo for Autism Awareness Month. Further discussion?
Thank you for doing this again.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's nice that, you know, that you continue to do this.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, appreciate
you
that.
probably got it down to a science at
Yeah,
this point.
it's
but
getting easier.
We love seeing you.
Yeah,
here,
right,
so-
Well, thank
exactly.
you.
I appreciate that.
We appreciate you for letting us do it. It really brings a lot,
Yeah.
means a lot to us. Personally.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you
And
guys.
I will see you running for a second, hopefully camera.
Yes.
And tripod.
Thank you very much. Of course, thank you. Now or not.
So, the next item concerns gifts to the Stoke Community Park, and I need to recuse myself, and so the clerk, Courtney Fresher, will be chairing.
Don't let this go.
Try not to let it go to my stomach. So the Stowe Recreation Department and the Conservation Commission have organized the opportunity for donations to have been made for benches and a picnic table in the new community park in the center of town center park. And a number of individuals and an organization have made contributions for such. There are 4-foot and 6-foot benches with plaques commemorating various things. The benches are maintenance-free, made from 100% recycled materials, and contoured for comfort. And they are guaranteed not to degenerate or sag over time. So the contributors, ET&L Corporation has donated 3 6-foot benches with plaques. Lee Cooprider donated a 4-foot bench with a plaque. Katie Fisher, 6-foot bench with a plaque. Linda Fletcher Denaro, a 4-foot bench with a plaque. Ed and Alice DeLuca donated a 6-foot bench with without a plaque. Elaine Sanfilippo has donated 1 6-foot bench with a plaque. The Stowe Lions Club, a 6-foot bench with a plaque. Kathy Sferra, Jim Salvi, and Cliff and Diane Smith are donating a picnic table with a plaque. Jody Newman, 1 6-foot bench with a plaque, and Betty Sumner, 1 4-foot bench with a plaque. These benches are going to be distributed around the park at various locations in order for people to be able to sit and enjoy the views of our lovely park. And since Mr. Salvi and Ms. Sferra are here, would you like to mention your commemoration on the bench?
The plaque on the table that we're donating is in memory of Steve Duncan, former selectman and our neighbor.
Thank you. So that's it. Do I have a motion to accept these gifts?
I move to accept the gift of 11 benches and a picnic table purchased with funds donated by ET&L Corp., Lee Cooprider, Katie Fisher, Linda Fletcher Denaro, Edna Alice DeLuca, Elaine San Filippo, the Stowe Lions Club, Kathy Sferra, Jim Salvi, Cliff and Diane Smith, Jody Newman, Betty Sumner, and approved by the Recreation Department to be placed at the Town Center Park.
Second.
I have a motion to accept a gift of 11 benches and a picnic table purchased with funds donated by ET&L Corp., Lee Cooprider, Katie Fisher, Linda Fletcher Denaro, Edna Alice DeLuca, Elaine Sanfilippo, the Stowe Lions Club, Kathy Sferra, Jim Salvi, Cliff and Diane Smith, Jody Newman, and Betty Sumner, approved by the Recreation Department to be placed in the Town Center Park. Any further discussion?
Thank you to all the contributors. We appreciate your civic mindedness.
I was going to say, it's a very nice thing to do, and you know, it's something I think that the Recreation Commission has done before. I saw the flyer that went around. I wasn't even aware of it, but it's too bad. But you know, it's a great thing to do. Thank everybody who donated.
And I do as well. So, all in favor of accepting these gifts?
Aye.
Aye. And that's unanimous with 3 of us.
Chair, thank you very much, Mr. Very nice job. I feel threatened.
I gotta say though, that I can't see how it would have been a conflict of interest to take your money.
I'll be
I don't venture these things.
We'll talk about it later. All right, so, Mr. Town Administrator, I think I'm looking to you to take us through this next item, which is a multiple representation disclosure from our law firm, KP Law. Do you want to say a few words summarizing this, Bill?
Yeah, I think it's self-evident, but there's a municipal agreement, multi-party municipal agreement in the area of housing that Stowe's part of, and KP represents several of the communities in the intermunicipal agreement. They have to declare that fact in the event that there might be any perception of a conflict of interest. In this case, that would be the only aspect of conflict of interest that would be applicable, because the intermunicipal agreement is the same agreement for every community that's party to it. Pro forma.
Well, I suppose it's just a disclosure to make sure that somebody doesn't say, you know, 6 months from now, hey, we didn't know that you also represented another town in the same thing. How are you protecting our interests? I think it's that simple.
Well, we'd have to execute something, which is an express consent.
Pursuant to the ethical rules.
Right.
Professional ethical rules. What type of program
It's
is
a
it?
housing agent.
It's a transportation pilot program.
Yeah.
And this,
Corrected. There is a multi-party housing consulting agreement that is
That's the
along
one
the
with
same
Foxborough.
communities. Huh?
That's with Foxborough. Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make that clear. I didn't mean to be a stickler.
No, it's nice to get it right.
you know, the only question I had when I read it, and I was satisfied after I read it, is it's very specific that it's to this one issue and one issue only, that they're letting us know that, you know, they're representing other people, and you know, it seemed pretty, as Bill said, pro forma, you know.
My concern is that more than one attorney within KP, when it came to review of the document, might be engaged in, and so there might be redundancy in charges to that effect. And that may have occurred otherwise, but it didn't once we discussed it, but.
So I don't have any problem with this in concept, but the only explanation we have of what this making connections thing is one sentence, the second sentence of the first paragraph. The subject of the proposed intermunicipal agreement is a transportation pilot program funded through the Community Compact Program. That doesn't really tell me very much. I just feel that as a matter of due diligence, and I should have probably thought of this before tonight, but I wasn't uncomfortable until right now. Just as a matter of due diligence, I'd maybe like a little bit more explanation of what that is and how it affects Stowe. I don't have, when we hired, well, that's not true. When John and Barbara went to KP, we knew this was going to happen. We were aware that they represented towns in the area, including Sudbury and Concord, and I think Hudson. I'm not sure about that. It just seems like, as a matter of due diligence, a paragraph about what this is.
I wouldn't disagree with you. My only involvement was on the technical side.
Yeah.
I have no more information about this, the substance of this service than you do.
Could you, yeah, I know.
KP, Barbara John asked me with respect to the matter of the transparency in the statement, and that's the extent of.
Could you,
I can ask Jesse or someone to provide at least a paragraph on the nature and extent of the scope of it, because I really don't have any details and haven't been engaged and no one's asked me, so.
right, and that's kind of where I am too. I mean, I've been involved in transportation issues, as you know, and I've never heard of it. So maybe send an email to John, Barbara, and Jesse, because they may know something. And please convey to them, well, is this meeting with approval from the rest of the board?
If you have,
Yep.
if you have reservations, you know, I'm happy with it. The interesting thing is the write-up we got says Jesse's gonna be here at the next meeting to explain what
Yeah.
this is.
So,
So it may, you
yeah.
know, if you have reservations about it, I doubt this is gonna be a problem to wait 2 weeks. So, you know,
Yeah.
I
So
think
let's do that.
it's
Well, I mean,
probably okay, but
You
I'm
could
happy to go.
condition if you felt like, I think the way that this is prepared and submitted, and it was a request by council, it's on the technicality, not on the substance of the service, but if you want to wait for both, if Jesse's going to be here in 2 weeks to describe the nature of the service, you can sign off on it then.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this pilot program. I've never heard of it before, like our chair, but as Mr. Ryan points out, in our notes, we're gonna have Jesse explain it to us in 2 weeks, and I'm looking forward to that.
So,
It would have been a preferred approach to have waited for
Yeah.
this to get on the agenda when the person who's working on the scope with others on the service.
You know, you can go up and grab them right now.
Well, he's in the middle of the meeting.
So are we.
Mr. Burke, would you prefer to wait for 2 weeks?
I'm gonna respect the chair's reservations.
Are you good waiting 2 weeks? Which would you prefer?
I'm fine waiting 2 weeks.
Don't defer to me, please. Just, what do people want to do? Just want to do it?
No, I'm fine with waiting. If you have reservations,
Then let's wait.
I
That's
understand
fine.
your scruple that you'd like to know more about the service before you are comfortable saying that you believe there'd be no conflict.
It would obviate the need to even agree to the technicality if you decide you were opting out of the service.
Sure.
So I don't know how that got arranged that
I
way.
don't mean to speak for Jesse, but I think the mechanism we wanted is to have this in place properly before we come next session and ask you to sign the actual IMA.
Why?
Just because then it's been approved, it's been in place for some time. I don't care either way.
Yeah, I just don't feel like I'm doing my due diligence if I consent to multiple representations on a thing I don't understand. In order to give that consent, I need to know that the subject matter is such that conflict doesn't really matter. where we all basically have the same interest, and not knowing anything about the subject matter, I feel like.
Because he wanted to come tonight, and he thought it best if this were done and that, but either way, it's fine.
There'll be no effective meaningfulness to a vote tonight on the technicality if in the end, in 2 weeks, the substance of the service which this relates to.
Doesn't go anywhere.
So we can't,
Right.
you know.
Right, okay, so let's hold off. Let's hold off.
I respect our chair's scruples. It's nice to know he has some.
They're low, but I have them. All right, so let's skip that, and then let's go to the creation of the Town Administrative Screening Committee and the appointment of our lonely 2 members, the other 3 having been appointed by the moderator already. So you may notice I changed the motion. It occurred to me that we'd never officially created the committee. It might be a good idea to create it. So we're going to officially create the committee. The moderator's already appointed people. And let's start our discussion.
I don't want to quibble on technicalities, but doesn't the charter already have done
Maybe,
that?
you know, I think, maybe, nothing wrong with belt and suspenders. So we, thank you for everybody for getting the scores in. And let me start off by saying, for those of you, we interviewed the bulk of the candidates on February 1st in the morning. And we also interviewed 1 candidate on January 28th. I think it's fair to say, I don't think we can make a bad decision here. All of the candidates were very, very good. And I mean, I think a lot of them are extremely qualified for different reasons. And the moderator's picks then helped us helped me focus on, okay, so what additional do I need from the skills that are available? We've each done numerical rankings. You know, these are of some usefulness, but somewhat limited. I can kind of tell here that some of us had a different scale than the others. Mr. Ryan, I think, being the stingiest, no surprise there. But it's a little junk. So I'm going to suggest that we're not bound by these numbers. This isn't a procurement where we have, you know, this is a discretionary appointment. This is a guide more than anything else. And I'd like to have the benefit of I know I personally like to have the benefit of your thoughts. And I'm assuming the rest of you do. So what I thought I would do is just start off really quickly. For those at home, I should probably say that the moderator has already picked 3 members, Allison Toole, Karen Meyer, and Ross Perry. And that our remaining candidates are Ann Buck, Craig Martin, Nikki McGackie, Ellen Sturgis, and Deb Woods. And I think I want to just go around the table, state very quickly who you think your top 2 picks are and why. And then I guess I'm going to open it up to some motions, which should really get some discussion going. Does that sound fair? Is that okay with everybody?
As the chair pleases.
Okay, I'll do that for you guys. Let's start with you, Ms. Fraser.
So my top 2 picks are Craig Martin and Nikki McGackie. The reasons being, I think Nikki would give another sort of a diverse point of view, being a younger and perhaps less experienced in some ways member of the screening committee. But I found her a pleasure to work with on the Conservation Commission, and I think highly of her. I also think highly of Mr. Martin, and think that his experience and temperament would be an excellent choice for the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan?
My top pick was Craig Martin also. I think that he'd be a very, very good addition to this committee. He's got a lot of experience working with Bill very closely over the years, and so, as well as being a town employee and a voter in town. And he, where he is planning on retiring in the not too distant future. It's not, you know, he'll be looking out, I think, for all the other employees and hopefully handing off a good position. My second choice was Deb Woods. I know what she's capable of, and I'll leave it at that.
So my top pick was Deb Woods. Primarily her energy, her organizational ability. She, more than any of the other candidates, just struck me as being ready to hit the ground running. I've worked with her on other things, and I find her, I would trust her with a lot of very important things, and would be very comfortable with her. She struck me as pretty close to what we were calling a no-brainer or a sure pick in my own mind. For my number 2, I'm very close. I gave a slightly higher rating to Nikki McGackie. I was extremely impressed by her, and the idea of her outside perspective. I mean, she's been on the Concom, but she brings a slightly different, she brings the parent perspective. She really had a fantastic demeanor about her, also very organized. She was the first interview we did that day, and she set the bar very high, I thought. Mr. Martin is also very impressive, in particular because, I mean, we are looking informally for an employee representative. Now, Allison Toole is on it, but, you know, Mr. Martin has a different approach to it than Allison did. Allison's going to rely on people approaching her individually to get input from other employees. Mr. Martin seems like he's relying more on perhaps a group that he would discuss, and he seemed confident that he could present his own opinions and the group's opinions. I prefer that approach. I do really find very desirous the fact that he is not picking his own boss. That seems to give him a lot of freedom. And on that number 2, I'm a little betwixt and between. Mr. Burke.
I asked all the candidates what they were looking for in the qualities and characteristics of their colleagues if they were selected. And if I'm not mistaken, every single one of them said diversity of viewpoints. And I thought that was a good answer, and I thought that was something that we should respect, because whoever we select is going to have to work with one another. So in that vein, I kind of approached this as trying to find roles that these candidates would fill. Ross Perry, sorry, Mr. Moderator, yeah, that was a no-brainer. He's been on both sides. It's just of the screening committee, so he was a certain pick. Then we had to look at the two or three other groups that were represented in our candidate pool. First were town employees. I know that there has been a great deal of emphasis on getting employees of the town input into this process. There was even at some point a talk of having a dedicated spot on the screening committee for an employee. It didn't go anywhere. But that being said, we have 2 town employees. The town moderator picked Allison Toole. I'm not saying that I would make the same selection over Mr. Martin. I do know that he does have a lot of the qualities, but I don't think we can have too many town employees or too many of any viewpoints on this committee. So therefore, with the greatest respect with Mr. Martin, and knowing for sure that if I'm around in 17 years, he will not throw up in my face that I was part of a committee that didn't select him on the first round. I just think that we need to make sure that not any one constituency is not overrepresented, and that's why I would. That's why since the decision for the one town employee has already been made, I'm not as, and I think you would be a great contributor, Mr. Martin, but I just don't think we need another viewpoint. Even though, as I pointed out when you interviewed, you have a unique perspective, given that you're going to be retiring. So that brings me to the new person who hasn't been, has been tangentially involved in town politics and civic involvement of variety. That was the decision between Ann Buck and Nikki McGackie. I agree with my colleagues. Nikki was just stellar. In fact, I was really impressed by how well she spoke. We had a lot of great candidates, but she consistently spoke without saying ahums, yeah, you knows. Very well spoken. And I think that was just what I took away from the interview, but I think given all her other qualities, she should serve that role for the diversity that we're looking for in the screening committee. And that brings us to the type of candidate that's represented by Ellen Sturgis and Deborah Woods. These two candidates represent the type of people who've been consistently involved in town government, have been really active in our community and have a stake and can represent that type of interest on the screening committee. I have to say, Deb Woods impressed me as the type of person who said that she could intuit people, and she was a people person. I was a little leery, though, that she's been married to the same guy for so long. I don't know how her people skills fit in there, but having said that, I just couldn't pick between the two. That's why I gave them roughly the same points, and I thought my colleagues would have a better say. I'm sorry if I took too long, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to explain my thinking, and again, because somebody might come up in 17 years and start yelling at me about my point scoring.
No,
Or not yelling.
Thank you.
But recriminating me.
All right. Who feels comfortable enough to make a motion? Anybody?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Craig Martin to the screening committee.
Do I have a second? Did you second?
Yep.
Okay, motion is made and seconded to appoint Craig Martin to the screening committee. Further discussion? Obviously for the reasons you said. Ready to go straight to a vote?
I would, I thought Mr. Burke's comments on this motion, so to speak, were pertinent and not insignificant. So I don't disagree with you, and I thought your point was well made.
I agree. All right, are we ready to go to a vote? I'll take that as a yes. All those in favor of appointing Craig Martin to the Town Administrator Screening Committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did you vote? Oh, okay. And all those in favor.
Why don't you push her?
All those in favor, please signify by saying. All those against, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Okay, so that's a tie. So that motion fails. Another motion.
I move Nikki McGackie, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. And I put her name in nomination.
I'll second that as well.
Motion made and seconded to appoint Nikki McGackie. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Is there another motion? May I make a motion?
Yes.
I'm going to move to appoint Deb Woods.
Second?
Motion is made and seconded to appoint Deb Woods. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And I'll abstain.
So that's 3 in favor. So that motion.
That's after you heard all of us.
So that passes. So Nikki McGackie appointed unanimously, 4-0. Deb Woods 3-0 to 1. And that's it.
everybody did a great job and were really great candidates.
Yes, I would really be very happy if we had 6 spots, but,
No,
it's terrific.
I-
Now, oh,
I
sorry.
was going to say, one of the things is, and obviously, now that we've appointed these people to it, it would be up to them, but they were planning on looking for input from townspeople and the town employees. You know, I suppose it would be up to the committee if they wanted to entertain associates, but that'll be up to them.
I do think it's up to them, and what I do want to ask the town administrator about, so I haven't looked at the timeline that we prepared, but I think it basically called for this committee to get together as soon as possible. So how is that going to work? I assume we're going to let the people who were appointed tonight know. I know that the 3 who were appointed by the moderator already know, and let them talk amongst themselves and find a time that they can get together.
I think that's an approach you could take. I mean, you have 30 days between this evening and their first meeting. So you could convey that information to all the candidates. They're all adults, there's only 5 of them, you know, and suggest in conveying that information that you've got 30 days to meet, the sooner the better. I mean, that's a long time. And then encourage them, have an email that's shared with all of them, that you communicate with each other and try to find it at your earliest opportunity, a date and time to meet, choose a chair. We can give them a few basic instructions if you'd like.
Mr. Burke.
Point of information, they have to meet within 30 days, but there's nothing preventing the screening committee from meeting sooner or earlier?
Right.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that
So,
that was the case.
so let's, between you and Maureen, let's convey to them, all 5, that they have 30 days to meet. Send it in a way that they can see each other's email addresses. I'd appreciate if you would CC me on it. I'd like to go to their first meeting just to help kick it off. I'd welcome company from another selectman. It should be only 1 though, to avoid a quorum.
Is it going to be an evening meeting?
I don't know. Boy, now you got a 9-to-5 job. This is really important stuff.
You had a 9-to-5 job once too, Mr.
Yes, I
Chair, if
know.
recall.
I've moved beyond that.
Obviously, you
21st
won't
century.
know because you're giving them the opportunity
We're
to
giving them a
organize
chance.
it.
I mean, I would guess Mr. Perry at least has a 9-to-5 job, so I would guess it's going to be in the evening. So I'll leave it open to you guys to decide if you want to go with me for a kickoff.
Hey, we can all, you know, you can post in the first meeting, it's got to be posted. And then we can, you know, if I can make it, we'll show. If there's somebody else here, I'll turn around and go home.
Okay, very good.
Well, and I suppose that raises the issue, since there is no designated leader of this committee yet.
Right. Who calls?
It might be appropriate to have Maureen poll them on a night that they can meet and then post the first meeting for them.
I'd actually like them to work that out. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to kind of interact and start doing that. All somebody has to do is post a doodle poll, and they'll figure out when they're, but I think we should let them figure that out.
I can draft some language that's going to provide some either
Guidance.
subtle or direct on
Right.
some deliverables and things that they have to
That would be
decide
terrific.
on.
That would be terrific.
You know,
Thank you.
posting for the open meeting, some basics.
All right.
But mostly, the folks we're talking about are, you know, first of all, we got a municipal attorney who's been doing this for a very long time, served me particularly during that period of time between Jake and John. You got a seated town administrator. We've got people with experience in Stowe with committees. I think with a few hints, and they'll be able to get organized, have a meeting. Somebody can offer to take charge of suggesting dates. You don't have to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think they'll be able to get with the program in time
Okay.
with a few hints.
So thank you, everyone. Mr. Moderator, thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, one question, do they have to get sworn in?
Yes.
Well, yes, I would think so. I would think so.
Will you please make the committee a special municipal employee committee?
Oh, yes, and in
Thank
fact,
you.
thank you, I would have forgotten, we have to now create them. So, there's a motion here. You can forget about add the name into the blanks. And please, so I will entertain a motion pursuant to Town of Stowe Charter, Section 4-6, to create a town administrator screening committee, to designate that committee as those committee members as special municipal employees, and to appoint Deb Woods and Nikki McGackey to that committee for a 6-month term ending August 11, 2020,
So moved.
to serve along with 3 people appointed previously by the moderator.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, as I just said, to appoint our 2 people to a committee and create and designate as special municipal employees. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's done. Thank you very
Good
much.
job. Good
So,
job.
notable that we set a
Good
timeline,
job for the working.
and we stuck to it, and very good.
Yes,
Good
we should do
selections.
some good.
The town administrator is now going to give us a preliminary budget overview. Your state of the town, or state of the budget message is officially the next meeting, right?
Next meeting.
Okay, so
That's the
this-
joint boards
Right, joint
meeting.
board meeting. This
So
is just
this
a-
always precedes it.
Right.
Which is just, and in recent years, earlier on, it was essentially the spreadsheet that you've received would have had only the first column on the left, which would have been the voted budget for this year, and requested amounts in the second. In the interest of time, which isn't much that I have under this process, to be more efficient, what you've got in front of you, and you're the only ones that have it, is the fact that I've begun to make tentative decisions in the third column from the left. They're tentative, they're not final. I'll be going back and forth, but I want to be able to get to that point so I don't forget. I'm not as good as I once was with my memory, and I've made notes about some of these are tentative. So it's a working document, and because it's not final, and those aren't my recommendations, I want just you to have those for the moment, and then moving on. By the time the meeting on our next meeting, I will have gotten close, but I have until March, and I need it sometimes before I make recommendations. So having said that, essentially what I do here, starting with the first page, is I provide you with what I think are the significant numbers as it relates to either a comparison of this year to next year, year over year, or just a standalone, something new, and I have some of each. So if you, on the first page, and I apologize not getting to you sooner, but in fact 2 figures changed on me today. But I'd rather give you the latest information because there's time to look at this, and we'll be going through it. It's not as though there was any harm done to that, and I think it's a better product, so that at this moment this is the best information. The schools, for example, are going to change, I think, soon. I thought they would today, meaning Neshoba, Minuteman, and we'll discuss that. For me, unfortunately, is going to be the figure it is, and was the one that was given to us. But top to bottom, left to right, so income used for operations, the significant figures here, and as you know, when you look at property tax line, and every year I explain this, it's an inflated number as a budget number, because what it includes in there, when you see that 11.84%, is all of our unused levy capacity. Okay, so that's potential income. And the way the municipal accounting standards are, it asks you to include that. So when you see that number, you think that's actual income available, and it is. If you ever needed an extra couple, $2 million, you could put it in there. But as a practical matter, it doesn't. But what I would do is, if you go to the second page in the top, under the Prop 2.5 calculation, as you know, we get the levy limit plus 2.5, which is built into this. It's embedded in the equation, so that stands at the top, and that amount is $697,705. And then right below that's the new growth revenue, and at this moment it's $315,000. Now, if you look to this year, we had a banner year at $816,000. So right off the bat, my revenues are down. Before we get to discretionary revenues, my structural revenues are down by $500,000. it's not a good start from that. Now, we do get to make it up, but, and that's originally, this changes as the assessors continue to get current valuation numbers. So this is up from 250 of a few weeks ago. So in 2 weeks, when they come in the joint boards, I'm hopeful, because I pressure them every day, you know, about finding more money.
Bring money.
And we have a brand new employee there, by the way, and I told him that I expect him, with his experience, to provide a little insight if it's necessary to help get that figure up. So then you drop down, and if you go down to the deduct line which says unused levy capacity, you'll see in the far left column that we're carrying right now 2.145 in unused levy capacity, million. We've got more than our fair share of unused levy capacity. So that inflates that number on the top of the first page at 11.84. And if you go through my sheet, you'll see how that multiplier works. But anyway, I just wanted to go through that again, as I always do. So second line down in this year is the state aid number. This is the actual governor's number that I've got in, but of course, until the state aid process goes through the legislature and it goes House, Senate, the governor goes first. So I got the governor's numbers in there. So that's the actual one. They get tweaked, but you're not looking for a substantive change in that, and it's such a small amount of my revenues. It's a plug number for me. It's not one that I worry about too much. The one that I would want to mention, local receipts. Again, second column in, first page. I'm estimating $2,220,000. And as I explain each year, what I do is I take budget to actuals for the last couple of years. I look at trending, and trending is up on local receipts. And the actual take for 2019 was 2,362, so I'm going in with 2,220,000. I don't get too tight. You watch the state do it, they're always coming up short because they go in there with unreasonable expectations, but this is under actuals. In fact, it's under the actual for the year before, but it closes the gap, so I'm not leaving too much on the table, all right?
It's a significant increase.
Yep. Because that was the, that 1.8 was a conservative number from last year, and I didn't need it. So, and to tell you the truth, until it sets up in the fall with the assessors on the tax recap, this is a plug number, you know. I get to speak with them in the fall, but that's when the final decision is actually made on the local receipts. The number below that, transfer from other funds, not a meaningful number because it's budget neutral. We've just got some less expenditures. The CPC expenditures this year is down. The Stowe TV is down, but if you go through that document, you'll see where I've got on both sides income and expenses. So that significant drop is meaningless because it's a push with regard to budget impact.
On that, does budget to actuals show any trending or pattern and where the money's coming from and where the money's going?
Could you be more specific? You mean on the overall budget together?
I mean, are there some, you're basically saying, well, this fund didn't use it, this fund needed it, am I correct?
When you speak to the transfer from other funds, correct. And the one above it, like I said, the trend in local receipts. So you can't, there isn't a single trend for the overall budget.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, so, but with local receipts, what I just said is it's trending up, okay? I stay with the trends, I'm not expecting a change except I expect the trend to continue moderately, incrementally, so I've tightened it some. Now on the one that we're speaking about now, there is no trending. It's up and down. The CPC each year is sometimes, it's like the Minuteman.
Okay.
You know what I mean? There's no trend
Thank you very much.
on a year-to-year basis. This year, it's down because CPC is spending less and Stowe TV is spending less. Last year, they both had increases. You know, their needs change each year. So those two, they don't trend and haven't for recent years. And again, it's budget neutral, so I don't, you know, it's not where trending is important or meaningful to me. You get down to income used for capital outlays. This is significant. So if you look at this year, we spent a ton of stored assets for our budget. A ton.
Yes.
Okay? And if you look under, OPEB, first of all, I more than doubled to 235. I'm level funding it for this year, which Standard & Poor's felt okay with. We were at 100. I went from 50 for a few years to 100, and then panic set in with some people, so I went to 235, and I think it will hold for a couple of years before the next request. It's a big number, however, and it's going to continue to grow. It won't go down. It won't remain static.
The free cash for capital was in part because of lower village, right?
So I'll get into that.
Okay.
Okay, so this current year, so it says free cash for capital articles at 657,500, okay? Essentially, that relates to what was expended at town meeting, which extended into June. Doesn't include this last fall, okay? Because we were in a new free cash year, certification comes in the fall, okay? So this was last year's, this is current year budget, all right? And so free cash gets certified, and I'll give you the total when you add them, the other figures together, but that was 657,500, okay? And then, if you look below it, 436,000 for stabilization. The total amount of stored assets, and then, so 974, so 316,000 additional money came in the fall, together with that. So we're well over $1 million in stored assets for our capital, and over $1 million of that, well over $1 million was for Lower Village. This, not well over $1 million, over $1 million. This doesn't include borrowing. If you remember that last aspect in June, where we had $1 million in borrowing. So we borrowed both for the fire station at the May town meeting. We borrowed $650 for the new fire truck, together with $850,000 for the HVAC here. So that was borrowed. And then we came back in June, we borrowed $1 million. The article was a total of $1.886 million for Lower Village. $1 million borrowed, the rest was stored assets, right? So when you look at what we did this year and compare that to what we are doing, there's a significant drop off in stored asset use. Specifically, we're not using any stabilization, as you know, this year for anything. I'm maxing at 500 the free cash for capital, and then I'm plugging in 235,000 of free cash. So I'm 735,000 total in free cash for this year, which is significantly less than for next year than this year. And
Which will pay for virtually everything that's been requested.
it's gonna, we're at 706 right now, so, you know, it's gonna
Yeah.
be a significant chunk of it. And right now, the overlay surplus that I'm carrying, again, I'm dependent on the assessors and the treasurer's collector's office and the accountant, because we have to get receipts and other things in, and they're not all there yet, but I'm plugging in 100,000. I think they're right now at 75,000, but we're missing a month or two of receipts. I think we're gonna get to 100,000 or plus. That is a trend, so I'm usually above 100 when we're done. But and I've got room this year, so if it dropped, if the budget to actual drops some, I can reduce that revenue and not be impacted on the bottom half for expenses. So in the bottom line, you get 35,088,243, which is a 7.23% increase above current year.
So I'm sorry, you're only proposing to use 600,000 for capital items. 235 is for OPEB.
No, so 500 for free cash, okay, in capital, 100 from surplus,
Presumably for capital.
okay, yes, okay, and then the 235. So because they're different, they're available funds, but they're all different. So the overlay surplus I've identified for capital at 100, 500 from free cash, and then another 235 from free cash for the OPEB. So it's 735 for that,
Got it.
and extra 100. So I'm total 100 for stored assets going towards capital under 706. 500 of that is free cash, which is, I thought, your question. So, so 35,088, 7.23. Okay. So now you get down under expenditures. The general municipal budget right now, where I am, okay, and you can see that here. So it came in at 5.64 with some tentative decisions. And here's the tentative decisions I already made. There's been a few departments wanting new hires, and I've told everybody, I'm not gonna be recommending new hires. I don't have what I would consider as a hardship. And so, at this point, I don't have that in there. I have increased some hours to date tentatively and a few other things, but they're modest increases, small degree, but no new hires. So I'm down at 3.78, 7,324,348. If you look under my column down below, you look at the requested column, it's 7,455,573, which is 5.64%. So I'm down at 3.78. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit, but it won't be significant. So even though it's really a plug number, it's going to be close to where I end up. The big benefit we get underneath is Neshoba at this point is at only 2.5. And I'm going to say it again for the 4th straight year.
Yeah.
My career, I never saw anything like this. And I've been telling them, and I even told the
Chair today.
yes, the chair and Mary, who's a member, that I remember the years when, you know, when I first got here, we were negative free cash and took almost a decade to get into the positive, and then we had annual increases in the Neshoba of coming to us of 6, 7, 8%, you know, and it killed us, you know. So after all that work, in 3 years, turning in at 2000, early 2000s, and in fact, Lancaster couldn't get overrides passed, and they became a part-time government. Then it moderated some, and we got stable. But in recent years, change in the composition of the school committee and a new hire of a superintendent, the administration, and the approach, won't go through all the details again, but in any event, another good year. And this 2.5, I was told today, might come down just a little, even further in a couple of days. But at 2.5, because if you look at the size of that, 18,336,000, I mean, any change in that by percentage is much different than even a 50% change down below and a much smaller number. So just below that is Minuteman, right? So as I told you earlier, 50% increase in the assessment from this year to next year, and it's $442,000. So if you look at the savings, we're going to get at 2.5, but it's really not a year-to-year savings on the Neshoba's assessment because it went down last year. Our assessment was a negative. It went slightly down. It was less than 1%. Student enrollments had a lot to do with it, but their budget was less than 3%. When you gave that to the fact that compared to the other two, our population, student population went down, it went down. So a 2.5, you know, but still, in the case of Minuteman, at 881,595 this year, next year it's 1,323,000. That's $442,000 that I wasn't looking for that, you know, on the expense side for it. And then I couldn't make a regional meeting of town managers at Minuteman a couple of weeks ago, but the superintendent, Alice DeLuca, who's a member of our school committee, and one other person came out to see me to go over the budget last Friday, as a matter of fact. It didn't affect the change in it, it's still going up 50%, but I got to ask some questions on the expense side. You know, how much E&D did you use? Are you trying to control it? What have you done? You know, and I got those answers, and they'll be provided when they come in 2 weeks as well. But this number looks solid. That's what it's going to be.
You know what's disappointing about that is only a few years ago, the Minuteman line item was, the magnitude was 300, 400,000, maybe in the 200s. And you would see in the budget a 25% increase. And your eye would go right to it. But it wasn't that much. It was $50,000. It's like, oh, okay, we can absorb that. But now it has gone up to, last year was a $900,000 item. So a 50% increase is is the size of what not that long ago was the entire line item.
And we've had this discussion, because I've made these comments before, which is just that. If you look at the per pupil cost, when you're 15 students, 16 students, at 38 grand, you know, we were up to 40 at one point. You can manage it. When that multiplier applies to 35, we went from 19 to 35 students. Plus the annual debt payment for us. It's not fully loaded on Minuteman, but it's close. Those two together blew the assessment up for us. And we weren't the only community that got that. But those are structural impediments that aren't gonna go away. So as students go up, there's gonna be a structural though cap I think is going to save the future, which is they're close to maxing out on the number of students they can put in that building. And that would have been, in my opinion, the only thing. They would I'm not saying they're not trying to control costs, but they have limits to what they can do on the margins. But this, at least, maxes out, because if it wasn't for that and they had much more operating, and here's the other thing, I mean, parents sending their kids to Neshoba, and then looking at what's happening over here at Minuteman, much smaller class sizes. There's professionals teaching some of their high-tech stuff now. I use the word nanotechnology and hydrogeology and all the rest. That's an exaggeration, but there's some sophisticated things being taught over there. They're not cheap. They take people of higher expertise to give them. And so that, coupled with a new school at this point, those costs are going to continue to go up. And I don't know, at one time there were about 10 or 11 kids per classroom, 20-something programs, all the rest of it. But at least, at this point, I think next year, I asked, the superintendent mentioned, they might be maxing as far as the number of students. So at that point, at least, the cost won't be driven by increased enrollments from out of district or in district. So in any event, that figure's in there. That's $442,000 I pegged right off the bat, saying I got to find something somewhere, both by taking, in part drove my estimate up on using for local receipts, because I'm trying to increase income now, and I'm going to try to control costs, but big cost savers right below, which is we unloaded the debt for Hale School. We netted $525,000 because we were getting an annual, as you remember, $700-something annual payment, $542 coming from the state. So our unused levy capacity just got affected because we no longer can offset that part of what the MSBA provided us. But at the same time, we unloaded annual $740-something thousand line item, which is called Hale. So we netted $500-something. So now I'm saying, we're back in the ball game, right? And so that's good news there. It's $542,000. So now I'm in the plus. I've just taken that 442 from Minuteman,
Right.
and I'm saved and made a little more.
Wasn't that 542 what we were getting from the state?
Yeah, 542, and the total payment was $700 and something dollars. Okay, so the revenue side, I'm talking expenses now. It went down our expenses just went down $700-something thousand. Net, it's only, so that comes off the unused levy capacity, but that's the revenue side. It's still $742,000 less than we paid last year for that line item. There's some tweaks on the other side that lessen that impact, because our debt schedule has some other things on it. But that net, on the expense side.
But doesn't the 542 income go away also this year?
That's what I'm saying. I just said the unused levy capacity got reduced by that amount. But you're looking at income, I'm just talking expenses. They're both in there, okay? So the next item down below, again, it's budget neutral, so it's, well, no, that's too down. Raise and appropriate, so this year it's 513,981. Next year, right now where I am at 581,200, okay, is a 13% increase. In there, by the way, is the, I put some money in for that van service that I think Jim wants to talk about. And so the commuter rail van service, Kate got a grant for $25,000 to try to get some commuters from Stowe to the South Acton station. And we were going to go through Crosstown Connect, but in talking, and we had some meetings on that, but Crosstown Connect, to tell you the truth, didn't have freely available sufficient, not much space, a backup bus. So we were going to have to see if we couldn't make available to us. They'd have to come from Maynard to Stowe and then down. And we have for some time, as you know, the Council on Aging has a van service. We have multiple vans. And that service began several years ago when we were being charged on the cherry sheet for MBTA service. And many fringe communities outside of Boston were saying, Christ, you're killing us with that. We're not using it as frequently as the inner cities were. And so legislatively, there was a law passed that on the cherry sheet, there was an MBTA charge. But if you joined a regional transit authority and claimed you were getting regional, because that's what MBTA is, it's regional transit. So what it was is, and so we joined MART, and many other communities in our area joined other regional transit. So we got to charge off that MBTA because MART basically took us on as, on paper, our vans in the service we provide and the budget expenditures that we have in there. So the vans have been free because the Friends of the COA have been buying them. But each year in the COA budget, I staff the drivers, I pay for maintenance vehicles, a little under $30,000 a year right now. So every month, Allison would send paperwork, payroll and other things up to MART. MART would take it, send it into the state, and we'd get reimbursed. So with that already in place, and it was under the understanding that this is a regional transit, in part for commuter rail, because that's what it was. We never used it for that, it was just the COA folks who were getting, but that was fine, we were good with it. So under this approach, spoke with Allison, who's agreed, and she's already spoken with the Friends who have purchased the vans, and they're good. And I think Rec had already been making use of the vans. So anyway, we can make use of the vans that we already have, that we're already staffing, provide additional money for van driver payroll, and bump up take the $25,000 that Kate's got. It's got to get from Crosstown Connect to us, but that's something she can do. And so we're going to start that this spring. So between what we already have available to us, plus her 25, I've plugged in 10 grand, just a plug number. Right now, operationally, Jim's been part of meetings, we've kind of got this kicked off. Allison and Jesse and others are gonna look at operational matters and start trying to get cost estimates, and I'll adjust that 10,000 before the end of, just met with Jesse yesterday, met with Allison a couple of times, we all met with Allison and Kate, last Friday. So I'll have a better number, but I just put 10 in there just to be safe, and we'll put whatever we need is to make sure we get a year out of it.
And just since you raised it, what we're talking about initially for a pilot program, keep the expectations low and keep it to what you think you can do. Van doing 2 trips in the morning to hit the 2 express trains at 7:03 and 7:53. They appear to be the highest demand. And with those 2, parking is already full by 7:03. We're not going to hit the 2 trains earlier than that because people have the possibility of parking. There's I think 2 other rush hour trains, but these appear to be the highest demand ones, and then do commensurate runs in the afternoon or evening. Still a lot of logistics for Allison to figure out, and we're going to have to do a rollout, do some publicity, looking for the parking to be up above the old fire station. Some suspicion that it's quickly going to fill up, and we're trying, crossing our fingers, trying to get at least 35 parking spots, because if you've got 2 trips with a 20-person van, that's 40. You figure some people are going to get dropped off, or carpool, or ride a bike, which I might do. So 35 seems like what you ought to try to get. So we're trying to figure all this out right now. So don't plan on taking the van to the train from Stowe tomorrow. Mr. Berg.
You mentioned that people would, bivouac at the old fire station and use the parking there. I don't know if you go by there early in the morning, but a lot of parents are there dropping their, parked in that parking lot for the school buses. Around 6:40, 6:50. Just, again, I don't want to go too far afield, I just thought I'd input
No,
that.
that's good. Someone will have to check out.
Yeah, so
I drive by it every day.
it will depend where they are. One of the things we have to look at, so we've got above to the north side, we got down along the side, and then we've got parking in the front of the station, but obviously with the cemetery, it's got storage in there and such, but you can go out the north side and out to the right. So we're gonna we're gonna have to manage that. The other thing is that we've got some parking at the abandoned highway right down the street, which will be going that way anyway. And so this will be a work in progress, but we're gonna get a pilot started, and I've said my own opinion is keep it simple, do a few things and get started. Don't overpromise and underdeliver, do the other way around. And so we'll be setting expectations, but we can get it off the ground and get going with what we've got. And that was the point of the pilot. So see,
Yeah, that's a good tip, though. I mean, I'll drive by and see what it's like at those times. Really should have thought of that. So this is why logistics takes time. So thank you.
so it's one of the increases in the special articles raised and appropriate. Most of it's standard stuff. I had to plug in 35 grand for unemployment that I haven't done for years. The state went online, the treasurer collector was telling me it's online with unemployment, and I don't know if you follow unemployment much, but it used to be pretty simple, about who was eligible for unemployment. Now it's almost everybody who leaves you for whatever reason, doesn't matter if they were, depending on the reasoning, it used to be, if you left on your own, you didn't. But it's even more extended than that. We had some employees that left our place of employment for another job. They then left the other job, and when the unemployment benefits at that other job, they're able to kick back to the previous employer, and treasurer collector wasn't aware of that, and it's online now, and you're expected to check their websites to see when an employee, right, they've just approved for, the only way to really secure and protect against any of that is contest everybody that might have, but their notices only come online, and now you've got on a monthly basis, you've got to check their online for employees that you have left you, went to another job, and you've got to now anticipate whether they might have, in any event, we owe the state some money for unemployment, and we hadn't had anybody charging against us for some period of time, except coming back for a second bite at the apple on it. In any event, there's $35,000 in there for unemployment.
I assume you're contesting anything that you think you can.
From this point on, I'm going to tell the treasury collector's office, you check it every month, and if there's a name, to go back there. Now, I will say this, I fought it once, years ago, and won it when I first got here. Won't get into the details, but it was a social worker pretending that the social worker was something different for the employee, and the employee had physical limitations, therefore couldn't work. And I looked at the acronym, I said, geez, I think that's and I was before the arbitrator. I said, I think that means she's a social worker. How the hell would she know? Anyway, got lucky on that.
It's always been a little skewed toward paying benefits. I had a situation a while ago. My employer, we got a notice from DET about someone who had clearly quit, but she filed an unemployment claim anyway. And you would get a notice, and you have 10 days to respond. If you don't respond within the 10 days, you're liable. Well, it came in and it sat on somebody's desk for more than 10 days, not mine. And then we discovered it on like the 15th day, and we called, you're out of luck, had to pay.
I mean, they won't admit it, but really what the state has decided in this and MCAD in all cases related to employees, they're going to find some way of either directly, indirectly, through process. Like I said, it's now, you've got to go online to check. So you don't get notified as you would have directly in the past. You've got to go through their listings and find the names, and otherwise they're approving them. But this is purposeful, The state wants somebody to pay for employees who need money at a given moment in time, and so unemployment now is much different than it once was. It used to be based on cause, but it's not anymore, and you could get whacked, not as the last employer, but they've gone somebody else, and when they run it out there, they come back to you.
That's insane.
It is, but that's the way it is.
Maybe that's some stuff we could have done.
In any event, next one down, appropriate and transfer, again, budget push because it's got no impact. It's available funds being transferred. In similar reasoning, it's the other side of the equation, except with some add-ons from the ones up in the income side. And it's down, but again, it doesn't budget comparison only. So here's the other place where we make up a ton, okay? So we're gonna net pretty good. Capital articles. So if you look at, again, not borrowing, that figure's not in there. If you look at the one, this year, 1,839,810 of capital expenditures in this year. So you take last year's annual, 2 bites at it. This last fall, 300 and something thousand, right? So again, borrowing's not in this, okay? This is just expenditure. 1.839, okay? Of that amount, Lowell Village was 1,023,000, okay? Now this year on the books right now is 760,000, okay? That's a large difference, and that's another thing in this budget that is going to put us in a very good place. Now, from my perspective, I'm saying, okay, then I'm trying to pass this along. I'm not advocating for things that will take this benefit and end up net with the taxpayers where, So if you look down below, and tax recap items, fixed costs in there of county retirement, we have no choice on that's in there. I've taken the actual cherry sheet from the governor on the county charges, okay, on that. But the big one is the county retirement number, which is now, and it went up an appreciable amount.
Why don't they just all go on unemployment?
I'll mention that to them, see what they say about it, I think.
That was a significant point.
Was that Joe? You have to identify these.
Oh, yes. BPWA.
I figured it out.
All right, so county retirement's going up 7% to 1,024,000. So of that total, and then the state and county charges are going up a small amount in that. Drop to the bottom line, in my column at this moment, 32,242,815, which is down netto year over year 1.46%. So we're netting less expenditures next year than this year, which is a good thing. So 2 out of the last 3 years, we're going to be able to hold the line, and this is actually a net decrease of 1.46 at the moment. And we're at, with that budget, 2.845 in unused levy capacity million on it. And again, the things that the capital articles being down substantively. And to tell you the truth, we need it. So here's the stored asset. If you're going to look at that, we got certified last fall at 2.75 million, okay, which together with what was then stabilization fund, we were at 9.45%. This was after all the expenses last spring, all right? Then we got recertified, okay? We take out the 300-something thousand at the special town meeting in November. That's under new free cash certification. And so with all of that taken out, at the present moment, we stand at $2,547,000 in free cash, together with $500,000 in stabilization after the 436 that was taken out. So we're a little over $3 million between those two. Okay, that's 9.45%. If you take this budget, where I'm advocating $735,000, back that out, there's no stabilization or other stored asset use, we end up at 2.312 million total stored assets. We're at 7.2% of our expenses. When I make that comparison, it's based on expenses, and that's what
We have a policy that makes the target for stored assets to be between 5 and 10% of the operating budget.
So I think that's a safe amount. I mean, I can use less stored assets in the budget and increase the amount of taxes that are being charged. At this moment, I'm not inclined to. It's a safe number. And at the same time, given the impact on taxes this year, when the bills came out and the rest of it, we still have a safe amount of stored assets. The budget, the municipal budget, meaning the non-school, leave out the other side, is 3.78%, just under 4. It's not a bad increase. Everybody's getting their cost of living, increasing a few hours, just not hiring anybody this year. I mean, we're still waiting on, and just as an update, we're hopeful in a few weeks to get that compensation study that we started, but it's not going to be ready for this. And at this point, I think getting a new town administrator in, having some time to look at that. We're trying to get staffing levels as well, which is a little more, it's difficult to get these to begin with because you have to rely on the cooperation of other towns. And I'm one that, for example, every time I get one of these saying, please fill out all of the following, right? So it takes a period of time. You either go early and don't get, your sample size is too small, or you spend more time trying to get better results, and at this point, I'm not even gonna, we don't have them yet, and so I'd rather get the better results by taking a little more time on both, particularly the staffing levels, but also on the, so wasn't gonna make any new hires until I got that information anyway. But in any event, that's where we are right now.
So thank you, Bill, and I'm sure that for your last budget, you're very happy at seeing a negative number there.
Well, it was my good luck. I mean, unloading that debt, and I don't know, thankful that the departments had put in capital this year, but it would have been difficult to match this year
Yeah.
for next year because it was a ton, right?
And also, we're sort of unstated explicitly, implicit is we're taking a bit of a holiday for borrowing this year by using over $500,000 in free cash, which we clearly can afford, to pay down a relatively small amount of capital items where we have the luxury of being able to largely avoid borrowing, if not entirely avoid borrowing.
Well, because we did load up debt that'll go on the books next year, this year, because we did, so it was the last fiscal year, but it's now, you know what I mean? So last spring, with the $1 million that we borrowed for Lower Village, and then the amount that we borrowed for the fire station, I mean, the fire truck combined with the HVAC, which was 1.4 million. So we borrowed 2.4, almost 2.5 million anyway. Now, it didn't hit us in this year, so, but it will hit next year. But that's in there for next year, the impact of the borrowing for those projects.
So I'm going to crack the whip a little bit. I'm going to allow, obviously, questions for Bill, but keep in mind, please, that this is only a preview. We're going to see this again in 2 weeks. And please keep in mind that we have an executive session item that I think is going to take a little bit longer than some do. Questions for Bill on the budget?
No, I'm good with it for right now.
Congratulations.
Good
Looks
job.
like you're going to have a good, smooth year for your last one. So.
Well, maybe in this area.
And that was probably the worst thing I could have said. Right. Thank you, Bill.
James?
Let's go to liaison reports, and again, let's keep in mind that I think we have a fairly, well, a moderate-sized executive session. I'll start with Brian.
The LACAC is just been meeting for about 2 hours with a new attorney by the name of Campbell to perhaps engage him for use in the upcoming cable negotiations.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I got, other than Finance Committee. I didn't meet last week, but they will meet next week. And I think it'll be the 2 school budgets.
Town administrator totally stole my thunder on the van, so he filled me in on
I
that.
didn't mean to.
That's all right.
Good for him.
Bill and I met with the chair of the school committee, Kathy Kadian, and Mary McCarthy, a Bolton member, about the proposal to increase the membership. The Neshoba School Committee will most likely be voting to increase its membership tomorrow night, most likely to 3 from Bolton, 4 from Stowe, 4 from Lancaster. We went through the math in some detail. We had a lot of questions about exactly how the math was done and some of the rationales. But to be fair, there's really nothing, there's nothing we can do about it. They have the authority apparently to increase their membership on their own. B, it doesn't seem that controversial. If you take the total population of the 3 towns, divided by 8, which is the number of school committee representatives, you get something like 2,400 residents per school committee member. That's the ideal equal representation. Bolton is 14% under that. The other 2 towns are slightly above it, slightly overrepresented, and Bolton is underrepresented. Putting math aside, putting constitutional issues aside, that seemed fairly substantial. And they're going to take some steps to remedy it. The upshot is at our next meeting, we're going to have to redo the election ballot to add a second school committee representative to the warrant. Again, they're probably going to be voting this next tomorrow night. I had time to reach out to our school committee members today. I already got in touch with 2 of them. They are indifferent as to it. They don't see any reason to really question it. They're both a little bit concerned about how it's going to affect the dynamics of the committee, and that's about it.
This is, and I know we're pressed for time, but this is so that Bolton will have another member?
It is we'll all have another member. It's to try to get closer to what they perceive as a problem under 1 person, 1 vote. And they've been working with DESE on this, and DESE has done the mathematical calculations. It has apparently told them that we have a problem with 1 person, 1 vote, and that we should remedy it, and this is the best solution. Oddly, strangely, just adding 1 member to Bolton and making it 3, 3, and 3 makes the problem worse. It makes Bolton overrepresented, and the rest of us slightly underrepresented.
You approximate, I mean, it's not
Well-
a precise formula, it's one that can be accurate, but not.
Maybe I'm wrong, but my recollection is that the representation is in the regional agreement, therefore the regional agreement will need to be changed, which will require a vote of town meeting, if I'm correct.
They say you're not.
No, the language, and I've got to check it, but they're saying the language in the district agreement is what they're relying on to say they don't need that. Now, the percentage for variance, and this is where the word variance comes up, it's in there at 10 to 16%, which I guess DESE doesn't like. I'm wondering why they never caught it over 20 years. But in any event,
10 to 16%, yeah.
what did I say?
I don't know what you said.
That's what you said.
I probably said 10 to 16.
I thank you both for following this. Is there anywhere, other than attending these meetings, that we can get a written understanding of what you've been
Well,
talking
we
about?
One of the things we asked for was a written understanding.
see, the fact is,
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
no,
then.
no.
we were only made aware of this by an email from last Friday. We didn't have any knowledge of this,
We had a
and they're going to
very-
vote it tomorrow night.
We had a very complicated mathematical discussion about standard deviations. So, and basically what we asked for was a bit more of a written rationale from them or DESE about how they're doing the calculation, because they're not using standard deviation, they're using another deviation formula. Why are they using that? And a little bit more about why are they saying we're in violation of the constitutional principle of 1 person, 1 vote? What's the basis for that? That was a little unclear. But again, they're apparently just doing it tomorrow night.
You're done?
Yeah, I'm done, sorry.
I don't know if you guys got a chance to take a look at the new thing that the fire department put out. I think Maureen sent it around to everybody.
This is the kind of stuff, when I was a manager, that my boss wanted me to do and I could never do. So this is good stuff.
That's it. I talked to Chief Landry today, and he's, they've been working to try to put the stuff together. They're basing it on their call reports, and he's very optimistic that this is going to help show what they really do. That and once the we talked earlier that about the firefighter appointment. He's very much looking forward to getting that done at the next meeting once the paperwork gets taken care of. I ended up meeting with Steve Dano, our new highway superintendent, last week for a couple hours, and he's got a bunch of ideas, and one of the things he'll probably be trying to do is put on a little public forum to explain some road work type stuff to people in the next couple of months, try to educate people about paving issues and things like that. And then the Town Hall Building Committee is going to be having a public forum in sometime in March, mid-March.
Early March.
Early March. Right now, we're actually looking towards the 11th, as I recall.
Please let us know.
Nope, everybody but you. No, we'll let everybody know when, you know, once we get it hammered, you know, once we get it
We'll
nailed
post it
down.
and you can look on the website.
Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you. Courtney?
Community Preservation Committee now has 5 projects that will be going to town meeting for request for funding. There are then also, you know, a couple of administrative articles which are typical, and as many as 3 rescissions where they will close out funds that have not been used for a long time. I don't have an update from Conservation Commission or anything further to say about the Affordable Housing Trust.
I know Concom, March 4th, is considering the Eversource petition.
That's true.
I know some members of the committee are interested in that, so some members of the board are interested in that, so if you want to go to the Concom on March 4th, there will be some discussion of, so just so everybody's aware.
Yeah, so that's the initial application, opening of the hearing.
So, I will accept a motion to go into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, for the purpose of discussing possible litigation and to review executive session minutes. The discussion of possible litigation will be detrimental to our position, and we will not be coming back to the open session.
So-
This is, sorry, go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
This requires a roll call vote. Ms. Frisha?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan? Mr. Burke?
Aye, but I need a 2-minute break.
Yes, of course, and the chair votes aye.